The rain was hammering against the tall windows of my cafe like it had a personal grudge. I stood behind the counter wiping down the espresso machine for the third time that night, even though it was already spotless. The warm scent of vanilla bean and fresh cardamom still hung in the air from the last batch of lattes. Soft jazz played low through the hidden speakers I'd installed myself. This place was my everything. I named it Lila's Haven after the little girl I used to be, the one nobody protected. The front door chimed, even though we were 10 minutes from closing. I didn't need to look up. I already knew who it was. My stomach twisted the same way it had when I was 17 and heard my mother's key in the lock after another one of her girls' nights. My floor manager, Sophie, poked her head through the swinging door from the back. Her voice was gentle but tight. "Emma, there's a family at the big corner table by the window. They didn't have a reservation. The older man said you'd understand. He called you by your old name." I set the cloth down slowly. My hands weren't shaking. Not yet. For years of silence. For years of building this cafe from nothing but scraped-together savings, late-night baking trials, and pure stubborn hope. And now they were here, sitting at my best table like they still had any right to my life. I untied my pale lavender apron, folded it with deliberate care, and placed it on the marble counter. The cafe was mostly empty now, just the soft clink of one couple finishing dessert and the low hum of the rain. Perfect timing for an ambush. I walked out into the dining area. The warm golden lights I'd chosen myself made the exposed brick glow like honey. Every chair, every plant, every hand-painted menu board was mine. I had chosen the name Lila's Haven in delicate gold lettering above the door. My name, my dream, my proof that I could survive them. At the corner table sat the three people who once broke me. My father, Richard Harrington, looked exactly the same. Silver at the temples, expensive watch, that calm, commanding posture that always made waiters nervous. A half-empty glass of my signature spiced chai latte sat in front of him. He hadn't paid for it, of course. My mother, Victoria, was next to him, scrolling on her phone with her reading glasses low on her nose, pretending this was all beneath her. She looked older. The Botox couldn't hide the new tightness around her mouth. And across from them, slouched like he owned the world, was my older brother, Ethan. Same cocky tilt to his chin. Same entitled energy that had ruined so many things in my life. They hadn't changed. I stopped a few feet from the table and didn't sit. I needed to stay taller than them tonight. "You need to leave," I said quietly, voice steady. "We close in 10 minutes. My father smiled like no time had passed at all. "There she is. Look at you, Lila. This place is cute. Real cute. My real name is Emma now. Has been for 4 years. Hearing Lila felt like someone dragging fingernails across an old wound. I kept my face calm. "My name is Emma, and I'm asking you to leave." My mother finally looked up from her phone. Her voice was sugar-coated poison. "We drove all the way from Dallas, sweetheart. The least you can do is sit down and hear your family out." 2.5 hours isn't exactly a pilgrimage, I replied. "You've had 4 years to call. You didn't." Ethan leaned back, arms crossed, scanning the cafe with a smirk. "Nice setup, sis. Way bigger than I thought you'd manage. Smells expensive." The word sis made my jaw tighten. My father slid a folded document across the dark wood table. "You're going to sign over 20% of this cafe to your brother tonight. Before you close. We had our lawyer prepare it. Clean, simple, silent partnership. No drama." I didn't touch the paper. My pulse was loud in my ears, but I kept breathing. "You drove 2.5 hours, showed up unannounced, and expect me to hand over a fifth of the business I built alone because Ethan needs it?" My mother folded her hands. "Ethan made some bad investments. He's trying to rebuild. You have all of this now." She gestured around my cafe, like it was a toy. "He has nothing. Does that feel fair to you, Lila? Does that feel like family?" The word family landed like a slap. I thought about the nights I cried in my tiny studio apartment after discovering the $28,000 student loan taken out in my name when I was 19. I thought about the collection calls, the destroyed credit, The 2 years I spent working 3 jobs to pay off a debt I never agreed to. I thought about the holidays I spent completely alone while they posted perfect family photos on Facebook with Ethan front and center. I thought about how none of them had ever once said sorry. I looked at my father. Give me until the end of service. 10 o'clock. I'll come back to this table, and we'll talk properly. He leaned back, satisfied, picking up his drink again. That's my girl. I turned and walked back toward the kitchen, heart hammering, but my steps measured. I wasn't panicking. I had been waiting for this moment for 4 years. And tonight, everything was going to change. I pushed through the swinging kitchen doors, and the noise of the café faded behind me. The warm smell of cinnamon rolls cooling on the racks wrapped around me like a hug I'd earned myself. My hands were steady as I pulled out my phone and typed one simple message to the only person I trusted with my pain. They're here. Corner table. Need you now. Don't let me sign anything. 3 dots appeared instantly. Then, on my way. Breathe, Emma. I'm 20 minutes out. Her name was Catherine Rivera. 58 years old, sharp as broken glass, and the closest thing I had to a mother in this world. She had been my business mentor since I was a scared 22-year-old line cook with nothing but a dream and a mountain of secret debt. Catherine had torn apart my first business plan with red ink, then helped me rewrite every single line until it was bulletproof. She knew my family's history because she used to live 3 houses down from us back in Dallas. She knew exactly who Richard, Victoria, and Ethan Harrington really were. I sank into the small chair in my tiny office tucked behind the pastry station. The room smelled like fresh coffee grounds and the lavender candle I kept burning for calm. My heart was still racing, but my mind had gone terrifyingly clear. This wasn't just an ambush. This was the moment I had rehearsed in my head for 4 long years. 4 years ago, I had cut them off completely after I finally uncovered the truth. At 19, while I was working 2 jobs and trying to pay for community college, my father had used my social security number to take out a $28,000 family emergency loan. He told the bank I was co-signing willingly. I never saw a penny. When the payment started and my credit was destroyed, my mother's exact words on the phone had been, "This is what family does, Lila. Stop being dramatic. We fed you and clothed you for 18 years. I had paid every cent myself. I had clawed my credit score back from the 400s to 780. I had saved every tip, every extra shift, every birthday check. And when I finally opened Lila's Haven 2 years ago, not one of them had sent a text. Not even a congratulations. Now, they wanted 20%. I heard the soft knock on the office door. Catherine stepped in, silver hair perfectly styled, black trench coat still dotted with rain. She looked at me with those steady hazel eyes that had seen every trick in courtroom. "Tell me everything," she said, closing the door behind her. I did. Every detail. The unannounced arrival. The document. My father's calm threat to call my landlord and every investor I had. The way Ethan had smirked like the café already belonged to him. The way my mother had tried to guilt me with the word family. Catherine listened without interrupting, slowly turning her coffee mug in her hands. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "The loan they took in your name," she finally said. "You still have every document? Credit reports, payoff statements, bank records. Everything. In a locked folder for 3 years." She nodded. "They have no idea you know the full extent, do they?" "No. They think I'm still that scared little girl who just wants their approval." Catherine's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. More like recognition. "Good. That gives us power." She opened her sleek laptop on my desk. "Here's what we're going to do, Emma. We could call the police right now. Trespassing, extortion, the threat against your commercial lease. I could have them removed in 15 minutes. But they'd just disappear again, and that old fraud would stay buried forever." She looked straight into my eyes. "Or, we put everything on the table tonight. We make them confess. We make them sign something that looks like help but is actually justice. And then we flip the script so beautifully, they never see it coming." My chest tightened with a mix of fear and something sharper, something that felt like 4 years of swallowed pain finally being allowed to breathe. I want them to feel what I felt, I whispered. Not just for one night. For years. Catherine reached across the desk and squeezed my hand once. Then we do this the hard way. The smart way. The way that ends with you finally free. She glanced at her watch. We have about 40 minutes before the last customers leave. I need to draft 2 documents and set up a clean one-party recording under Washington state law. You keep them comfortable. Be the tired, reluctant daughter who's finally caving. Give them hope. She paused, her voice softening. Emma, this will hurt more before it heals. Are you sure you want to go this deep? I thought of every lonely Christmas. Every collection call that made me cry in my car. Every time I had stood in front of this very building and promised the scared 19-year-old version of me that one day I would make them pay, not with screams, but with cold, legal, perfect justice. I looked at Catherine and nodded. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. She opened her laptop and started typing. I stood up, smoothed my blouse, and practiced the expression I would wear when I returned to that table. Soft, exhausted, defeated. The daughter they had always counted on to carry everything. Only this time, I wasn't carrying their weight anymore. I was about to make them carry mine. I stepped back into the dining room just as the last couple was paying their bill. The rain had eased into a gentle patter against the windows, but inside Lila's haven the air felt thicker, heavier, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Soft golden lights still glowed over the reclaimed oak tables I had sanded and stained with my own hands. The scent of warm vanilla and fresh espresso lingered, but all I could taste was the metallic edge of adrenaline on my tongue. I carried a fresh pot of my signature lavender honey chamomile tea and a plate of warm blueberry lemon scones, hospitality as armor. When I reached the corner table, my family looked far too comfortable. My father had his phone out, scrolling like he already owned a piece of my future. Ethan was on his 3rd refill of the spiced chai, legs stretched out like he belonged here. My mother had finally put her phone away and was watching me with that calculated mix of pity and expectation. I set the tray down gently and forced my shoulders to drop, letting exhaustion bleed into my posture. Not rage. Not triumph. Just the weary surrender of a woman who had fought alone for too long and was finally, reluctantly, ready to stop. I've been thinking about what you said. I began, voice soft and tired as I lowered myself into the empty chair. About being the strong one. About family. My mother's eyes flickered with something close to victory. She reached across the table and covered my hand with hers. Her skin was cool, her touch practiced. We knew you'd come around, sweetheart. You've always had the biggest heart. I let the silence stretch just long enough for them to lean in. Then I continued, choosing every word like a scalpel. I don't want to be the person who handles everything alone anymore. If I'm going to help Ethan, I need to do it the right way. For the cafe. For my protection. For my accountant. My father straightened, smelling blood in the water. Of course. That's smart. We brought the papers. I know. I cut in gently. But there's a formality. Washington law requires clear documentation for any business transaction over $10,000 when there's been prior verbal discussion. It's just for my books. Nothing scary. I placed my phone on the table, propped against the small ceramic vase of fresh lavender I kept at every table. My thumb hovered over the record button. I looked up at them with wide, vulnerable eyes. I need to record this conversation. Just so my accountant can categorize everything correctly and keep it off my personal taxes. Otherwise, I'm looking at a huge hit. You understand, right? Ethan shifted uncomfortably. My father's gaze flicked to the phone, then back to me. He saw a tired daughter covering her bases. He did not see the trap. Fine, he said, waving a hand like he was granting permission. Whatever you need. Let's get this done. I pressed record. The little red dot appeared like a heartbeat. I kept my voice calm, almost apologetic. For the record, this is Emma Harrington, now doing business as Lila's Haven LLC, offering a secured business loan to Ethan Harrington. Not equity. A loan. Secured against his personal assets, so my cafe is never at risk. Can you please state that clearly, Dad? And explain why we're doing this? My father cleared his throat, leaning toward the phone with the confidence of a man who believed he was winning. "This is Richard Harrington. I am authorizing a loan from my daughter Emma's company to my son Ethan to help him satisfy approximately $200,000 in personal debts from a failed investment. The loan will be secured against Ethan's personal assets, so the café remains protected. This is to give him collateral to negotiate with his creditors." He sounded so reasonable, so paternal. I nodded slowly, letting the recording drink in every word. "Thank you. And just so the full financial history is documented and my accountant doesn't flag any patterns, I need to mention one prior incident. When I was 19, a loan was taken out in my name without my knowledge or consent. $28,000. It destroyed my credit for years. I paid every penny myself. Can you confirm that happened and that it was handled informally at the time?" The table went deathly still. My mother's perfectly manicured nails dug into the edge of the table. Ethan stared at the scones like they might save him. My father's face tightened, but the wine and the belief that he was so close to victory made him careless. He looked straight at my phone and spoke. "Yes. Approximately 9 years ago, a loan of $28,000 was taken in Lila's, Emma's, name. It was for family purposes. It was handled informally. We intended to pay it back, but circumstances delayed that. This current transaction is completely separate." The words hung in the air like smoke. I felt something inside my chest crack open, not pain, but release. For years of silence, 2 years of crushing payments, countless nights wondering if I was crazy for feeling betrayed. All of it, finally, on record, in his own voice. "Perfect," I whispered, voice cracking just enough to sound broken. "Thank you for being honest. That means everything." I slid the thick folder across the table. 11 pages of dense, carefully worded legal language Catherine had prepared in under an hour. It looked generous. It looked like help. Sign on the flagged lines. Ethan as borrower. Mom and Dad as guarantors. It's structured as a secured loan with a standard asset guarantee clause. If Ethan defaults, my company has first claim on his assets before any other creditors. But you'll pay it back, right? So none of that will matter. Ethan hesitated, pen hovering. For one heartbeat, I saw the shadow of doubt cross his face, the same shadow I'd seen the night he'd borrowed my car at 19 and totaled it, then let me take the blame. He signed. My father signed without reading past the first page. My mother signed last, lips pressed thin, eyes avoiding mine. The moment the pen left her fingers, my phone buzzed once. Catherine's text. Documents received. Assets search complete. He still owns the townhouse in Bellevue. Positive equity. We're locked in. I stopped the recording. The sudden silence felt sacred. I looked at each of them, voice quiet but carrying the weight of every lonely year. "The $200,000 you owe your investors? I bought that debt this morning. For 60 cents on the dollar. They were thrilled to unload it. Which means you don't owe them anymore." I let the words settle. "You owe me." My mother's face strained of color. "Emma, you can't." "I can," I said softly. And I did. "The document you just signed makes it ironclad. The recording makes the old fraud undeniable. I'm not calling the police tonight. I'm not screaming. I'm simply done being the only one in this family who pays for everyone else's mistakes." I stood up slowly. "Sophie will bring your check for the tea and scones. There's a nice Hilton 10 minutes away. I suggest you go there, because in 6 weeks, my attorney will file a lien on Ethan's townhouse. You'll make structured payments with 3% interest. Manageable. Fair. The same fairness you showed me when I was 19 and terrified." My father's voice came out hoarse. "This is extortion." "No," I replied, meeting his eyes for the last time. "This is accountability. For years late." I turned and walked toward the kitchen without looking back, the soft jazz still playing like nothing in the world had changed. But everything had. I didn't look back as I pushed through the kitchen doors. The moment they swung shut behind me, the weight I had carried for 9 long years finally began to crack. My legs felt unsteady, but I kept walking until I reached my small office. Catherine was waiting, standing by the desk with her arms crossed, silver hair catching the warm light. The laptop was still open, the recording already backed up to 3 different secure drives. She looked at me for a long moment, then simply said, "It's done." I sank into the chair. My hands started trembling now that no one could see. The scent of lavender from a candle mixed with the faint smell of rain still clinging to Catherine's coat. For the first time in years, I let myself feel the full storm inside my chest: rage, grief, relief, and something sharper: justice. Catherine sat across from me and slid the signed documents into a folder. The lien will be filed in exactly 6 weeks. Clean, legal, and ironclad under Washington law. Ethan's townhouse in Bellevue has enough equity to cover the full $200,000 plus interest if he ever tries to fight it. He won't. Men like him rarely do once the mask is gone. I stared at the wall where I had pinned the very first sketch of Lila's Haven, drawn on a napkin at 3 a.m. when I was 23, exhausted, broke, and still paying off a debt that wasn't mine. Tears burned behind my eyes. I didn't scream at them. I whispered. I didn't cry. I just made them sign their own consequences. Catherine's voice was gentle but firm. That's why this hurts them more than any shouting ever could. You gave them exactly what they asked for: help from family. And you did it with the same cold paperwork they used to bury you when you were 19. The recording of your father confessing to the fraud is devastating. Statute of limitations still has time. We keep it as insurance. He knows that now. Outside in the dining room, I heard Sophie's calm voice asking them to settle the modest bill for the tea and scones. No scene. No raised voices. Just the quiet sound of chairs scraping back and 3 people who had come to conquer walking out smaller than when they arrived. My phone buzzed once. A single message from an unknown number. My father's new one, I guessed. "This isn't over, Lila." I read it twice, then deleted it without replying. I blocked the number and set the phone face down. Catherine stood and placed a hand on my shoulder. "Go home, Emma. Take tomorrow off. The cafe will survive one day without you. You've carried enough for a lifetime." But I shook my head slowly. No. I need to finish closing tonight. I need to walk through my cafe knowing it's still mine. Every brick, every recipe, every future plan, still mine. She nodded with quiet respect. "Then I'll stay until the lien is filed and the first payment schedule is set. After that, it's up to them to live with what they created." I stood up, wiped my eyes, and stepped back into the now empty dining room. The rain had stopped. The city lights of Seattle sparkled through the tall windows like distant stars. I ran my fingers along the smooth edge of the counter I had built with my own savings. The reclaimed wood still carried the faint scent of lemon polish and hard work. For the first time in 9 years, the debt I had been forced to carry finally felt like it belonged to someone else. And I was free to breathe. 6 weeks later, the rain had returned to Seattle, softer this time, like the world itself was exhaling. I stood behind the counter of Lila's Haven watching the morning light spill across the marble tops. The scent of fresh espresso and warm cinnamon rolls filled the air as my new barista, Mia, laughed with the first customers of the day. The cafe hummed with life, my life. The reclaimed wood walls glowed warmer now, as if they had absorbed every late night, every tear, and every quiet victory that had brought me here. Catherine had filed the lien exactly on schedule. The court processed it without drama. Ethan's townhouse in Bellevue now carried a legal claim that would follow him for years. The automatic payments started the first of the month, small, steady amounts wired directly into my business account at 3% interest. Manageable. Fair. The same fairness they once denied me. He never called to argue. He simply paid. My father tried once. A voicemail from a blocked number 3 weeks after that rainy Tuesday night. His voice cracked with anger and disbelief as he spoke for 4 full minutes about betrayal, family legacy, and how I had destroyed them. I listened to it twice in the quiet of my apartment, then deleted it forever. I never called back. My mother sent one text. 4 words that arrived on a quiet Sunday morning. "I hope you're happy." I stared at the message for a long time, fingers hovering over the screen. Then I typed back 2 simple words that carried the weight of every lonely night, every collection call, and every moment I had rebuilt myself from nothing. I blocked the number and went back to the kitchen where I belonged. Standing there now, wiping down the espresso machine I had paid for with my own hands, I felt something deep and permanent settle inside my chest. Not rage anymore. Not even triumph. Just peace. I had spent 9 years carrying a debt that was never mine. 2 years paying it off while they pretended it didn't exist. 4 years building this cafe alone. Every recipe tested at 2 a.m., every chair chosen with care, every gold letter above the door spelling out the name I had reclaimed for myself. Tonight, when the last customer leaves and the lights dim, I will lock the door, breathe in the scent of vanilla and cardamom, and know that Lila's Haven is truly mine. Not because they gave it to me, but because I refuse to let them take it. I am no longer the girl who paid for everyone else's mistakes. I am the woman who finally made them pay for hers. And for the first time in my life, I am completely, beautifully free.